Today we are going to study about the stomach. Stomach is a muscular bag which forms the most distensible part of gastrointestinal system. It continues above with this esophagus and below with this duodenum. Then we will study the location of the stomach. Stomach, it is situated in the upper and left part of this abdomen. Anatomically it is situated in the quadrants, that is the epigastric, umbilical and left hypochondriac region. Most of the stomach, it lies behind the left costal margin in this thoracic cavity. The shape of the stomach, when it is empty, it is J-shaped. When it is partially filled, it is pyriform shaped, and in obese person it is Sternhorn shaped. The capacity of the stomach at birth, it is about 30 ml and it increases about 1.5 to 2 liters in adults. The length of the stomach is 25 centimeter long. Now we will study the external features or the parts of the stomach. The stomach has two ends, two borders and two surfaces. The upper end, it is called as the cardia, and lower end, it is called as the pyloric end. This cardiac end, it is continuous above with this esophagus and it is situated at the level of or behind 7 costal cartilage and the 11th thoracic vertebra, level of 11th thoracic vertebra. And pyloric end, it is situated at the level of first lumbar vertebra. Then it has two borders, that is the smaller border, it is a lesser curvature, it forms right border, and this is the greater curvature or left border of the stomach. This lesser curvature, it forms the right border, and the most dependent part on this lesser curvature, it forms this angular notch or incisura angularis. Then this left border of the stomach, it is larger and it is called as the greater curvature, and it is about 4 times long that of this lesser curvature. Then this greater curvature, it separates from this cardiac end by a notch that is called as the cardiac notch. Then parts of the stomach, it has two parts, cardia and this pylorus. These two parts is divided by a line which drawn from this incisura angularis towards this greater curvature of the stomach. This cardiac again has two parts, fundus and the body. The part above a horizontal line drawn from the cardiac notch, it is called as the fundus of the stomach. It is the upper convex part of the stomach, and the body, it is the part between fundus and the pylorus. This fundus and body of the stomach, it contains the gastric glands. Then this pylorus, it is divided into in two parts, that is the proximally pyloric antrum and distally the pyloric canal by an inconstant sulcus. Then it has two surfaces, antero-superior and postero-inferior surface. This cardiac end of the stomach, it is situated at the 7th costal cartilage, and there is evidence of physiological sphincter. There is no evidence of anatomical sphincter, but this at this pylorus, this pyloric end of the stomach, there is the thickening of circular coat of the smooth muscle and it forms a sphincter, that is the pyloric sphincter. So when we see the specimen, we can identify this pyloric end by feeling this thickening, that is the pyloric sphincter at this pyloric end. So these are the parts of the stomach. Now you see here also, that is the fundus, body, pyloric antrum and pyloric canal, lesser curvature and greater curvature. Then we will study the relations of the stomach, peritoneal relations of the stomach. First, along the lesser curvature of the stomach, it gives attachment to these two layers of lesser omentum. Along this greater curvature of the stomach, it gives attachment to this greater omentum. Also the gastrosplenic and gastrophrenic ligaments. You see, this is the gastrosplenic and gastrophrenic ligament. Then the part of the stomach on the posterior aspect, proximal to the attachment of gastrosplenic ligament, it is in direct contact with this diaphragm, and it forms this, or it is called as the bare area of stomach. Stomach is mostly all over, it is covered by this peritoneum. Then we will study the visceral relation. Anteriorly it is related with this diaphragm, liver and transverse colon. So these are the anterior relations, visceral relations of the stomach. Then posterior relations of the stomach, it form the structures which lies posterior to the stomach, it form the stomach bed. You see here the stomach is lifted and you see the structures which are posterior to the stomach. So these are left kidney, left suprarenal gland, then this is the splenic artery, then this is pancreas, transverse mesocolon and diaphragm. So these are the structures that form the stomach bed. This is the diagram after removing the stomach. After removing, this is the pyloric end and this is the cardiac end, and the structures which form stomach bed. You see here, this is the left kidney, left suprarenal gland, diaphragm, then pancreas, transverse mesocolon, splenic flexure of colon, splenic artery. These structures, these separate from the stomach by the cavity of lesser sac. Sometimes spleen is also in the posterior relations of the stomach, but it is separated from the stomach by the cavity of greater sac. So this is the diagrammatic diagram or line diagram to draw the stomach bed. Then we will study the blood supply of the stomach. Stomach is supplied by the branches from the celiac trunk. Along the lesser curvature, you see left gastric artery branch from celiac trunk, right gastric artery, it is a branch from hepatic artery proper. Then along the greater curvature, this is the left gastroepiploic or gastro-omental artery branch from splenic artery, and right gastroepiploic artery, it is a branch from this gastroduodenal artery. There are short gastric branches which supply the fundus and body of the stomach, and there is the posterior gastric artery which also supply the posterior aspect of the fundus and body of the stomach. Venous drainage along this lesser curvature, left and right gastric vein drains directly into this portal vein, left gastroepiploic vein drains into this splenic vein, and right gastroepiploic vein drains into the superior mesenteric vein. These short gastric veins, these also drains into this splenic vein. Then we will study the lymphatic drainage. For the lymphatic drainage, the stomach is divided into these four areas, area A, B, C and D. The area A, it is the upper 1/3 of the left side. It drains into pancreatosplenic lymph nodes, which lies along this splenic artery, and these are along the posterior aspect of the stomach. And this pancreatosplenic also drains into the celiac nodes. Lastly, drains into the celiac group of the lymph nodes. Area B, it is on the right side. It drains into left gastric nodes, which lie along the left gastric artery, and these also drains into the celiac nodes. Area C, that is the lower part of the left side, it drains into the right gastroepiploic nodes, which lie along the artery of same name, and from here it drains into the subpyloric group of the lymph nodes. From subpyloric to hepatic, and hepatic drains into the celiac nodes. And lastly, this area D, that is the pylorus, it drains into the various directions, that is the subpyloric, hepatic and left gastric nodes, and lastly it drains to the celiac group of the lymph nodes. Lymph from celiac nodes, it drains into the intestinal lymph trunk to drain into this cisterna chyla. Now we will study the nerve supply. So it is supplied by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. Sympathetic nerves, it is derived from T6 to T9 of the spinal segment via greater splanchnic, celiac and hepatic plexus. The sympathetic nerves are vasomotor, these are motor to pyloric sphincter, and these are inhibitory to gastric musculature, and this is the chief pathway for pain sensation. Parasympathetic nerves or parasympathetic supply is from right and left vagi. It forms anterior gastric nerve or anterior vagal trunk and posterior vagal trunk. Anterior gastric nerve, mainly it is contains the fibers from left vagus and divides into gastric, pyloric and hepatic branches. There are so many gastric branches which supply the fundus and body of the stomach. Pyloric branches, these are only two which supplies this pyloric antrum and this pyloric canal. So these are this anterior gastric nerve. So these are the gastric branches which supplies the stomach anteriorly, and this passes anterior to the stomach along this lesser curvature of the stomach. These pyloric branches, these are two in number, and hepatic branches which goes to this form this hepatic plexus. Then Posterior gastric nerve, it mainly contains the fibers from this right vagus, which passes along the posterior aspect of the stomach, and this gives two types of the branches. These are the gastric and celiac branches. These are so many gastric branches which supplies to the stomach along the posterior aspect of the stomach, and the celiac branch, it supplies or it gives branches to the celiac trunk. This parasympathetic supply, these nerves, these are motor and secretomotor to the stomach, and these are inhibitory to pyloric sphincter. Stimulation of this parasympathetic nerves, it increases this gastric secretion, which are rich in hydrochloric acid and the pepsin. So this is the nerve supply. Then we will study the structure of the stomach. Histologically, it consists of these four layers, that is the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis mucosa, and the serosa. This mucosa, again it has four layers: surface epithelium, lamina propria, this muscularis mucosa. This muscularis mucosa separate this mucosa from the submucosa. Submucosa contain this loose connective tissue along with the vessels and nerve, and this muscular layer, it is important, which has these three layers: outer longitudinal layer, middle circular layer, and innermost, that is the oblique layer. So this is the muscular layer. Outer layer, that is the serosal layer, these are derived from this peritoneum, and this epithelium of this stomach, it has this gastric glands which deepens to form this gastric gland. This gastric gland contains surface and neck mucous cells, parietal cells, and the chief cells. This parietal cells, it secretes pepsin, and parietal cells or the oxyntic cells, it secrete hydrochloric acid, and chief cells, it secretes this pepsin. Then we will study the interior of the stomach. When we take a incision along the greater curvature of the stomach, we can see the interior of the stomach. On the interior, you can see a large number of these longitudinal folds on the interior of the stomach. These are called as the gastric folds or gastric rugae. These are the temporary mucosal folds which disappear when stomach is distended. In between these gastric rugae, there are the small openings. We can see it with this hand lens. This is called as the gastric pits, and this gastric pit, it receives these openings of these gastric glands. These gastric rugae along this lesser curvature of the stomach, these are continuous, and these form gastric canal. The importance of gastric canal is that when we take fluid through the mouth, then it passes directly through this gastric canal before it mixes with the rest of the part of the stomach. So this lesser curvature, it get maximum insult when we take this fluid. Then these are the functions of the stomach. Then we will study the applied anatomy of the stomach. First is the gastric pain. Gastric pain, it felt in the epigastric region because this upper part of this skin of this abdomen and this stomach, it is supplied by the T6 to T9 segment. Then displacement of the stomach, it is displaced anteriorly. So in pancreatitis, there is the accumulation of the fluid and it forms this pancreatic pseudocyst. And when there is the abscesses in omental bursa, this displaces stomach anteriorly. Then pylorospasm. Pylorospasm, it is the spasmodic contraction of this pylorus, and it occurs in the infant at the age of 2 to 12 weeks. Then congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis, there is the marked thickening of smooth muscles in the pylorus, and that affects mainly the male infants 1 in 150 and in female 1 into 750 infants. Normally the gastric peristalsis pushes the chyme through the pyloric canal and the orifice into the small intestine at the regular interval. But when there is this pyloric stenosis, the elongated overgrown pylorus is hard and pyloric canal become narrow and which resists this gastric emptying. So in that, proximally the stomach may become dilated because there is the pyloric stenosis. So this is the congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis, and we have to correct it surgically. Then hiatal hernia. So this hiatal hernia, it is the protrusion of a part of the stomach into the mediastinum through the esophageal hiatus of the diaphragm. So it is due to this weakening of the muscular part of the diaphragm and the widening of esophageal opening in this diaphragm. There are two types of this hiatal hernia, that is the sliding hiatal hernia and paraesophageal hiatal hernia. In the paraesophageal hiatal hernia, the cardia remains in normal position and a pouch of peritoneum often containing the fundus extends through this esophageal hiatus anterior to the stomach. In this case, there is no regurgitation of gastric content occur because the cardiac orifice it is in normal position. This is the paraesophageal hiatal hernia. The second type, that is the sliding type of hiatal hernia. In sliding type of the hiatal hernia, the abdominal part of the esophagus, cardia and parts of the fundus of the stomach, it slides superiorly through the esophageal hiatus into the thorax, and especially when person lies down or the bends over, some regurgitation of stomach content into the esophagus is possible because the clamping action of the right crus of diaphragm on the inferior end of esophagus is weak. So there are the symptoms of regurgitation in sliding hiatal hernia. Then we will study the malignancies or the cancer of the stomach. It occurs mostly along the greater curvature of the stomach. We already studied the lymphatic drainage. Through this celiac nodes, it drains into this intestinal lymph trunk through this thoracic duct. So the metastasis occurs through this thoracic duct to left supraclavicular group of the lymph nodes, and this becomes palpable, and this sign it is called as the Trauser sign, and these nodes these are called as the signal nodes. So this is the malignancies of the stomach. Then gastritis, it is the inflammation of the mucosa and it is associated with this erosions and bleeding. Causes are H. pylori infection, analgesics, bile reflux, irradiation, local trauma and physiological stress. Then gastric ulcer, these occur most commonly along the lesser curvature of the stomach. These are the causes, that is the thin epithelium, less blood supply or lesser anastomosis along the lesser curvature, abundant nerve supply, gastric canal, shorter in length wave of contraction and H. pylori infection. You see these are the percentage, that is the highest gastric ulcers occur along this lesser curvature of the stomach. Then when this gastric ulcer it is associated with the H. pylori infection, treatment is antibiotics, and when it is associated with increased HCl secretion, there is the treatment is vagotomy with dissection of ulcerated area. When these ulcers these are situated posteriorly, that is the posterior gastric ulcer, it erodes through the stomach wall into the pancreas and it causes referred pain to the back, and sometimes it may erode this splenic artery and there may be severe hemorrhage in this peritoneal cavity. Now we will study this vagotomy. Vagotomy, these are of three types: truncal vagotomy, selective vagotomy and this parietal cell vagotomy. Truncal vagotomy, in which the trunk of or anterior vagal trunk or posterior vagal trunk it get cut. So when there is truncal vagotomy, all the branches of this vega it get cut, gastric as well as the branches which supplies to the other organs. This is the vagotomy, truncal vagotomy. Then there is the second type of the vagotomy, that is the selective type of this vagotomy. In selective vagotomy, the branches which are supplying to this stomach, that is the gastric branches from the anterior as well as the posterior vagal trunk, it resects, that is this is called as this selective vagotomy. And third type of this vagotomy, that is the parietal cell vagotomy. In the parietal cell vagotomy, the branches of the vagus which specially supplies the area in which parietal cells are located, we have the attempt to cut these branches. So this is the parietal cell vagotomy. Why it is important? Because in the truncal vagotomy, the other abdominal which this vagus supplies the other abdominal structures, the nerve supply also hampered. In selective gastric vagotomy, the stomach is denervated but the branches to the pylorus, liver and biliary duct, intestine, celiac plexus are preserved. And in parietal cell vagotomy, in which we can spare the other gastric function. That is, the example is the motility. So this is the truncal vagotomy, this is selective vagotomy, and this is the parietal cell vagotomy. Then we will study the last, that is the gastroscopy. The gastroscopy, it is done through the gastroscope. It is the flexible fiber endoscope which introduced nasally or orally and laid slowly down to the esophagus and gastrointestinal tract until desired level is reached. So gastroscopy to see the interior of stomach. And this is all about the stomach.